Emily, breathe. Just breathe. Sarah's voice was a soft anchor in the sea of tulle and silk swirling around me. My matron of honor, my rock since third grade, was currently kneeling at my feet, adjusting the hem of my custom Monique Lhuillier gown for what had to be the 10th time. I am breathing, I said, but my voice came out thin and reedy. I sucked in a deliberate, deep breath, the boning of the corset top pressing against my ribs. See, breathing. My bridal suite at the Belvedere was a chaos of organized joy. My 3 other bridesmaids, Chloe, Maya, and my younger sister, Jessica, that were fluttering around, holding lip gloss, bobby pins, and flutes of champagne that no one was really drinking. The air smelled of hairspray and the peonies in my bouquet. On the surface, it was the picture of pre-wedding bliss, but beneath my carefully applied makeup, a tremor of unease had started an hour ago and was steadily growing into a low-grade panic. "Where's Michael?" I asked, trying to sound casual. "Has anyone heard from him?" He said he'd text when the guys arrived at the church. Chloe glanced at her phone. The group chat from the groomsmen is just them arguing about whether the navy pocket square clashes with the charcoal suit. Standard stuff. No direct word from Mike, but he's probably just caught up. Caught up, I repeated, my eyes drifting to the delicate antique clock on the mantel. 1:45 p.m. The ceremony was at 2:30. He should be at St. Michael's already with his best man, Jason, doing whatever grooms do, tying knots, checking rings, sweating through their shirts. My phone, nestled on the vanity next to my grandmother's pearl earrings, remained stubbornly silent. No new notifications. "He's fine, Eminesia," Jessica said, coming up behind me and resting her hands on my shoulders. Her reflection in the full-length mirror smiled at me, a perfect replica of our mother's reassuring grin. "You know Michael. He probably forgot to charge his phone last night, or he's stuck in traffic giving some lost tourist directions. He's the most reliably unreliable person on time." She was right. Michael Bennett was perpetually 5, sometimes 15, minutes late. It was one of his few flaws, one I'd learned to factor into any plan. But his lateness had a pattern. It was born of distraction, not disinterest. He'd be late because he stopped to help someone change a tire, or got absorbed in a chapter of a book, or lost track of time fixing something for a neighbor. For a neighbor, the thought landed with a cold, slick weight in my stomach. "Call him," I said to no one in particular. Sarah looked up at me. "What?" "Call him, or text Jason. Just check." "Emily, it's bad luck to bother the groom right before the ceremony." My mother's voice floated from the doorway. She entered, a vision in her lavender mother of the bride dress, her eyes already shimmering. In her hands was the velvet box I knew held my something old. "Mom, it's not 1952. I just want to know he's there." I tried for a light tone, but it fell flat. My mother approached, opening the box to reveal a simple, stunning diamond pendant on a platinum chain. It had belonged to her mother. "That he's there, sweetheart. Now, turn around. Let's get this on you." I obeyed, lifting my hair as she fastened the clasp. The cold diamonds settled against my collarbone. A tradition, a connection to the past, to marriages that had lasted. It should have been comforting. All it did was make the ticking of the clock sound louder. Tick, tock, 1:52 p.m. "Okay, I'm calling," I announced, snatching my phone from the vanity. I swiped past the lock screen photo of Michael and me hiking in Big Sur, our faces windswept and happy. The line rang once, twice, for times before going to voicemail. "That you've reached Michael. Leave a message." His easygoing baritone felt like a taunt. "Hey, it's me. Just checking in. We're heading to the church soon. Call me when you get this. Love you." I hung up. The "love you" tasting like ash. Voicemail. I reported to the suddenly quiet room. He's probably in the car. Maya offered. Bad service between here and downtown. I nodded, clinging to the logic. Downtown Baltimore could be a dead zone. I sent a quick text. Hey babe, all good. Almost ready to roll here. So excited to see you at the altar. The three little dots didn't appear. No.read. Receipt. Nothing. The next 40 minutes passed in a blur of forced normalcy. We took the final bridal party photos in the suite. My smile feeling more like a grimace with each flash. My father, handsome and stoic in his tux, arrived at 2:20, his eyes misting over when he saw me. You look absolutely beautiful. Pumpkin, he said, his voice thick. Thanks, Daddy. I hugged him, the familiar scent of his cologne a momentary comfort. The cars are here, Sarah announced, checking her own phone. Jason says the guys are all at the church and ready. She looked at me, her expression carefully neutral. He didn't mention Michael specifically, but they must all be together. They must be. It was the thread I hung onto as we rode in the vintage Rolls Royce to St. Michael's. My father held my hand, patting it softly. Nervous. A little, I admitted. Good. Means it matters. The church was a majestic stone landmark, its spire piercing the clear June sky. Guests in pastels and suits were still milling on the steps, finishing conversations and cigarettes. As our car pulled up, a murmur went through the crowd. I saw phones being raised, cameras clicking. This was it. We were ushered through a side entrance, into a small, cool anteroom adjacent to the sanctuary. I could hear the low hum of the organ, the rustle of programs, the muffled voices of nearly 200 people waiting. The floral scent from the bouquets in the nave was overwhelming. 2:28 p.m. My bridesmaids lined up, adjusting their dusty rose dresses. Jessica squeezed my arm. Deep breaths. You're about to marry the love of your life. I nodded, my throat too tight to speak. Sarah positioned my veil, the delicate lace obscuring my view slightly. She met my eyes, and for a second, her perfect composure cracked, revealing a sliver of the same anxiety gnawing at me. She forced a bright smile. Ready. The organ music swelled, shifting into the processional, Pachelbel's canon in D. The door to the sanctuary opened. One by one, my bridesmaids began their slow, measured walk down the long, petal-strewn aisle. It was just me, my father, and the church coordinator, a kind-faced woman named Linda with a headset. Okay, dear, on my cue, she whispered. We waited. The music played and played. I could hear the gentle rustle as the congregation stood for my entrance. Linda pressed a finger to her earpiece. Her smile fixed. She waited a beat, then another. Her smile faltered. She muttered something into her microphone, her brow furrowing. Is there a problem? My father asked, his voice low. Just a slight timing issue with the groom's party. One moment. Linda's voice was strained. The music continued to loop. Through the crack in the door, I could see the backs of my guests, starting to shift uncertainly. At the far end of the aisle, the flower-covered arch where Michael should have been standing with Pastor Evans was empty. Only the pastor stood there, looking calmly toward back. My heart was a frantic bird against my ribs. Timing issue. Daddy. Shoo, it's okay. Probably just a bout of nerves. Happens to the best of them. But his hand on my arm was tight. 2:35 p.m. The music stopped mid-phrase. An awkward, deafening silence fell over the church. I heard a cough, a whispered question. Linda's face had gone pale. She listened to her earpiece, then looked at me with an expression of pure pity. Emily, honey, the groom, he isn't here. The words didn't compute. What do you mean? He isn't here. Where is he? His best man. Jason. He says Michael never arrived at the church. He isn't answering his phone. The floor seemed to tilt. My father's grip was the only thing keeping me upright. But that's impossible. The guys were all together. Sarah said, I think I need to make an announcement. Pastor Evans's calm, amplified voice came from the sanctuary. If I could have your patience for just a few more moments. A minor logistical delay. A minor logistical delay. Like a flat tire or a missing ring bearer. Not a missing groom. I need my phone. I gasped, ripping the veil from my head. It caught on the comb, pulling at my carefully styled hair. I didn't care. My father, bewildered, handed me the small clutch Sarah had been holding for me. My hand shook so badly I could barely unlock it. No messages, no missed calls. I called Michael. It went straight to voicemail. I called again and again. On the fourth call, as panic began to curdle into something cold and hard in my chest, it rang. Once, twice. He picked up. The background noise was chaotic, beeping, muffled announcements, the distant sound of crying. It wasn't the quiet reverence of a church vestry. Michael, where are you? What's happening? My voice was a sharp whisper. Eminesia. Emily. Thank God. He sounded breathless, frantic. Listen, I'm so sorry. I'm at Mercy General. It's Lily. She collapsed. I found her on her kitchen floor when I went to check on her before heading to the church. I had to call an ambulance. I'm with her now. Every word was a shard of ice. Lily, his neighbor, the orphan girl he'd grown up next door to, his self-appointed little sister, the one with the fragile health and the endless, bottomless need. What? What do you mean you're with her now? Michael, our wedding is starting. Now. I know. But she was unconscious. Eminesia. Her lips were blue. I couldn't just leave her. The paramedics said it was serious. She's getting tests now. I'll be there as soon as I can. I swear. You'll be here as soon as. I choked on the sentence. The disbelief was a physical blow. Michael, you are at the altar. Or you're supposed to be. There are 200 people here. My parents. Your parents. Me. Emily. Please, try to understand. It's an emergency. She has no one else. His voice was pleading. But underneath, it was a steely defensiveness. A tone I knew well. It was the tone he used when his loyalty to Lily was being questioned. I am here. I nearly shouted, my composure shattering. Linda and my father were staring at me, horrified. Dad, I am your fiancé. This is our wedding day. You need to get in a cab and get here right now. A long pause. In the background, I heard a faint, weak female voice. Mikey, is that you? I have to go, Michael said, his voice dropping. They need me to talk to the doctor. I'll call you as soon as I know more. Michael, don't you dare hang up on me. Michael, but the line was dead. I stood there in the cramped, floral-scented room, the phone pressed to my ear, listening to the silence. The heavy, ornate door to the sanctuary was still cracked open. I could see the side of my mother's face in the front row, turned back toward me, etched with confusion and dawning horror. I could see the guests shifting in their seats, the whispers growing from a rustle to a roar. Pastor Evans was walking quickly down the side aisle toward us. My father's face was ashen. Emily, what is it? What did he say? I lowered the phone. The world had narrowed to a single, glaring, undeniable point of light. He's not coming, I said, my voice strangely calm. Lily fainted. He's at the hospital with her. The words hung in the air, grotesque and impossible. My father's jaw tightened. He's what? Pastor Evans reached us. His gentle face creased with concern. Emily, I'm so sorry. What would you like to do? We can delay a little longer. Or, I looked at the open door, at the sea of expectant, now pitying faces. I looked down at my beautiful, extravagant gown, at the diamond pendant cold against my skin. I thought of Michael's voice, the way it had softened when he heard Lily call for Mikey, the way he'd chosen. Again, the cold feeling in my chest solidified into something clear and sharp. Delay, I said, the calm in my voice terrifying even to me. I handed my phone and my bouquet to my speechless father. I reached up and finished yanking the veil from my hair, letting it fall in a heap of tulle and lace on the floor. There's nothing to delay. The ride back to the Belvedere was a silent, funereal procession. My father drove, his knuckles white on the steering wheel. He hadn't spoken since we'd left the church, just guided me through the stunned, whispering crowd like I was a fragile piece of glass. The peonies from my bouquet sat crumpled on the floorboard, already wilting. My phone, back in my hand, was a buzzing, vibrating hive of activity. Notifications piled up, texts, missed calls, voicemails. I switched it to silent and stared out the window at the blur of Baltimore slipping by. The cheerful, just married decoration some stranger had tied to the back of the car felt like a sick joke. Emily, my father began, his voice gruff with a pain I knew was more for me than his own humiliation. We'll get through this. We'll sue the little bastard for every cent emotional distress. Breach of contract. It's not about the money, Dad, I said, my voice flat. It sounded alien to my own ears. And it's not just him. He glanced at me, then back at the road. What do you mean? I mean, Lily, this isn't the first time. A kaleidoscope of memories, once dismissed as minor frustrations, now sharpened into a damning pattern against the gray backdrop of my shock. 18 months earlier, table for two, under Bennett, I said to the host at the Charleston, one of the most exclusive restaurants in the city. We were celebrating my promotion to senior marketing director at Sterling Lowe. I'd worn a new crimson dress. Michael had insisted on this place. Right this way. The host smiled, leading us to a perfect corner table. We'd just ordered wine when Michael's phone buzzed on the linen tablecloth. He glanced at it, his smile fading. It's Lily's building super, he muttered, swiping to answer. Carlos, is she okay? I took a slow sip of my water, the ice clinking unnaturally loud. No, I'll come. I'm downtown. 20 minutes. He hung up, running a hand through his hair. The gesture of stress I knew so well. Lily's sink is leaking into the apartment below, he said, not meeting my eyes. Carlos is off-site. She's panicking. The valve's probably stuck. I just need to run over. Shut off the water. I'll be back before the appetizers. Michael, I said, keeping my voice even. Can't Carlos send a plumber? This is our celebration. You know how she gets with strangers in her place. Eminencia. She'll have a full-blown anxiety attack. It'll take me 10 minutes. I'll call an emergency plumber from there. He was already standing, dropping his napkin on the table. He leaned down, kissed my forehead. Order the crab cakes. I'll be back before they're cold. He wasn't. He returned an hour and 15 minutes later, smelling of mildew and pipe sealant, just as the waiter was clearing our abandoned main courses. The whole shut-off valve was corroded, he explained, sliding back into his seat, not even registering the cleared plates. Had to help the plumber find the main line. Lily was a wreck. He finally looked at me, at my untouched glass of wine, my folded hands. Eminencia. I'm sorry. Let's order dessert. The chocolate tort here is insane. I've lost my appetite. I'd said quietly. 10 months ago, we were at my apartment, packed for a long weekend in Vermont. Our bags were by the door. A rented SUV was idling downstairs. Just a quick stop at Lily's. Michael said, tying his shoes. She's got this new medication. The side effects sound rough. I just want to check her pill organizer is set up right for the weekend. 5 minutes. Max. I'd sighed, leaning against the doorframe. Can't you call her? Walk her through it on the phone. We'll hit traffic on 95. It's not the same. Babe, you know she gets confused. I'll be fast. An hour later, he wasn't back. I called. Hey, he answered. His voice hushed. She's having a bad day. Really low. I can't just leave her like this. Michael, we have a non-refundable cabin. We're supposed to be on the road. I know. I know. Just give me another hour. I'll get her settled. Order some soup for her. We never made it to Vermont. We ate takeout on my couch, watching a movie in silence while his phone buzzed every 20 minutes with Lily's "thank you" texts, each one a tiny needle of resentment. 6 weeks before the wedding, we were at his place, finalizing the seating chart, a Herculean task involving divorced parents, feuding aunts, and my college friend who is currently not speaking to his plus one. My phone rang. It was Sarah. Hey, you're on speaker with Michael. I said, hi, Mike. Okay, Eminesia. I hate to even bring this up, but I have to ask, are you sure about Lily's plus one? I frowned. She doesn't have one. She's coming alone. Michael insisted she sit at the family table with you guys and his parents. Right. Well, Sarah's voice was careful, diplomatic. I was at the wine bin last night, picking up those cases for the reception. And I saw Lily. She was with a guy. And I'm not judging, but they were. All over each other. Like, seriously handsy. I'm talking full-on makeout session by the Pinot Noir. I felt Michael go rigid beside me. What are you implying? Sarah, he asked, his voice tight. I'm not implying anything. I'm just reporting what I saw. If she's got a boyfriend, it's kind of weird she didn't mention it, and weirder that she's not bringing him. And it makes her whole. I'm too fragile and sick to ever date. Things seem a little off. You don't know her situation. Michael snapped, a protectiveness in his voice that was usually reserved for shielding her from bill collectors or pushy salesmen. She has a complex medical history. Her social life is her business. Maybe she just needed a night out. It doesn't change anything. Michael, I said slowly, putting down my pen. That's Sarah's, just saying it's odd. If she's well enough to be dating, then maybe she's well enough to not need you to be her emergency contact for every single thing. He stood up, the chair scraping loudly. That's not fair. A medical crisis isn't a thing. And you know she gets attached to easily. This guy probably means nothing. She's vulnerable. The last thing she needs is us interrogating her about her love life. Us. This isn't an interrogation. It's a question about our wedding guest list. And she's on it, alone. End of discussion. He walked into the kitchen, effectively ending the conversation. On the phone, Sarah let out a low breath. I'm just gonna say it. That is not a normal brother-neighbor relationship. That is a giant. Flapping red flag wearing a neon sign. She's like a sister to him, I said automatically. The mantra I'd repeated to myself and others 100 times. Her parents died. She's alone. He feels responsible. He feels something. Sarah said, and it's not just brotherly. Be careful. The car pulled up to the hotel's porte cochere. The doorman, who had cheerfully sent us off 2 hours prior, now looked stricken, unsure whether to open my door. My father killed the engine. The silence was absolute. It was never just him. I repeated, the memories coalescing into a single, painful truth, that it was always the two of them, and I was always the third wheel. The one who was supposed to understand. I didn't think he'd go this far. My father's face was a storm of anger and grief. Why didn't you say anything? Why did you let it get this far? It was the question I'd been avoiding for 2 years. Because I loved him. And when it was just us, he was perfect, thoughtful, funny, kind. He made me feel like I was the center of his world. except when Lily called. Then the world stopped. I looked down at the diamond engagement ring on my left hand. It felt like a shackle, that I convinced myself it was a virtue, that his loyalty, his capacity to care for someone so deeply, was a good thing, that it meant he'd be a good husband, a good father. A good husband shows up to his damn wedding. My father exploded, slamming his palm on the steering wheel. The sound was shockingly loud in the quiet car. He didn't choose not to show up. "Dad," I said, a strange, detached clarity settling over me, that he just chose her first. Again. And today, the cost of that choice was me. I opened the car door. The humid afternoon air hit me like a wall. The doorman finally sprang into action. "Ms. Thorne." We heard. "Is there anything?" He stammered. "No. Thank you, Javier," I said, walking past him with a straight back. My wedding gown, a cloud of silk and lace, felt like a ridiculous costume. People in the lobby stopped and stared, their conversations dying. My mother and Jessica were waiting in the now deserted bridal suite. The champagne flutes were still there, half full and flat. My mother's face was ravaged by tears. She rushed to me, pulling me into a hug that felt suffocating. "My baby, my poor baby." She sobbed into my hair, over her shoulder. I saw Jessica on the phone, her face pale. "No, it's definitely canceled." "Yes, all of them. Just start with the caterer. Tell them not to deliver." She met my eyes, her own filling with sympathetic tears. She mouthed, "I'm so sorry." I disentangled myself from my mother. "I need to get out of this dress." Sarah, still in her dusty rose bridesmaid gown, was the one who stepped forward. Her face was hard, her eyes blazing with an anger that mirrored my own simmering fury. "I'll help you." In the bathroom, as she worked on the endless row of tiny buttons down my back, I finally spoke. "You tried to warn me." "I did," she said, her voice tight. "And you should hate me for saying I told you so, but God damn it, Emily, I told you so." I know. The dress pooled at my feet, a puddle of ruined dreams. I stepped out of it, standing in just my slip. In the mirror, I saw a stranger, to her makeup still perfect, her hair still intricately styled, but her eyes utterly empty. "What are you going to do?" Sarah asked, handing me a hotel robe. I put it on, tying the belt with a sharp, decisive pull. The silk felt cool against my skin. "First," I said, my voice finding a new, steely register, "I'm going to take this off." I reached for my left hand, twisted the 3-carat diamond solitaire, and pulled. It came off with surprising ease. I dropped it on the marble countertop with a sharp click. It spun once, then lay still, glittering under the bathroom lights. Then, I continued, turning to face her, "that I'm going to call him. Not once, not twice. I'm going to call him until he answers. And I'm going to make him tell me exactly what the hell is going on in that hospital room." Sarah's lips curved into a grim, approving smile. And then I walked out of the bathroom, past my weeping mother and my frantic sister, back to where my phone lay on the vanity. I picked it up, my thumb hovering over Michael's name in my favorites. I looked at Sarah, at my family, at the wreckage of what was supposed to be the happiest day of my life. And then, I said, the cold clarity hardening into resolve, "I'm going to find out if there's anything left of my relationship to save, or if I've just been a placeholder in a story that was always about the two of them." The silk robe felt like armor. I sat on the edge of the plush hotel bed, my phone a cold, hard rectangle in my palm. Around me, the suite was a museum of what could have been. The carefully hung bridesmaids' dresses, the now wilted bouquets on the table, the half-empty bottle of Dom Perignon. My mother and Jessica had been shooed out by Sarah, who now stood guard at the door like a sentinel, her arms crossed over her rose-colored chiffon. "Do you want me to stay?" she asked, her voice low. No, I said, not looking up. That I need to do this alone. She nodded, a flash of understanding in her eyes. That I'll be right outside. Yell if you need to throw something, or if you need me to break his nose. A ghost of a smile touched my lips, then vanished. The door clicked shut behind her. Alone in the silence, the first wave of pure, unadulterated rage hit. It was a white-hot surge that made my hands tremble. He'd left me at the altar for her. The humiliation was a secondary burn, already scarring over the initial wound of betrayal. 200 people had seen me abandoned. My professional colleagues, my college friends, my great-aunt Agnes. The story was probably already on someone's Instagram. Hashtag runaway groom, hashtag wedding fail. I pushed the thought away. That was the aftermath. This was the battle. I tapped Michael's name. The call rang, and went to voicemail. You've reached Michael. Leave a message. Calling to see if your neighbor's feeling better than your ruined wedding. I said, my voice dripping with a venom I didn't know I possessed. I hung up. Call hashtag 2. Straight to voicemail. Phone off. Or he'd seen my name and sent me to hell. Call hashtag 3. I used Sarah's phone. It rang 4 times before he picked up, his voice breathless, wary. Hello, it's me, I said, my voice flat, a heavy sigh. Emily, please, now's not. Now is exactly the time. I cut in. Where are you? Mercy General. I told you, Lily's getting an MRI. They think it might be a neurological thing, a new complication from her dysautonomia. He was using his clinical voice, the one he adopted when he'd spent hours on medical forums researching her latest ailment. And what about our wedding? Michael, what's the diagnosis for that? A terminal case of you being a spineless coward. Don't. He snapped, then lowered his voice. I could picture him, pacing some sterile hallway, running a hand through his hair. Don't make this harder. This is a genuine medical emergency. So genuine you couldn't call your best man. Your parents, Añanito, say you weren't coming. You left me standing there like a goddamn idiot. I panicked. I saw her on the floor, and I just acted. I didn't think. You never think when it comes to her. That's the problem. I was shouting now, the robe falling open as I stood up and paced. What's her prognosis? Michael, will she live another hour without you holding her hand? Or can you maybe, just maybe, get in a cab and come deal with the catastrophe you created here? A muffled sound, like he'd covered the receiver. I heard a distant, watery female voice. Mikey, is everything okay? My blood ran cold. Mikey, only she called him that. I have to go, he said, his voice abruptly final. Is she scared? The line went dead. I stared at Sarah's phone. The screen went dark, reflecting my own twisted, furious expression. I threw it onto the bed. It bounced. Harmless. Call hashtag 4. For my phone again. Voicemail. Call hashtag 5. Voicemail. Call hashtag 6. I used Jessica's phone, which he didn't have saved. He picked up on the second ring. Hello. Before you hang up, I said, forcing my voice into an icy calm. Let me explain your situation. You have 200 confused and angry guests at the Belvedere Ballroom. You have a 5-tier cake, a 15-piece band, and a seafood tower that's probably already starting to smell. You have my father, who is currently researching Maryland breach of promise laws, and my mother, who is sedated in the other room. And you have me, your fiancé, who is currently sitting in a hotel robe, holding an engagement ring that now feels like a piece of costume jewelry. You have exactly one chance to fix this. Get here. Now, there was a long silence. I could hear the hospital's PA system in the background. Dr. Reynolds. Code Blue. ICU. Emily, he said, and his voice cracked. For a second, I thought I heard the shame. The dawning horror of what he'd done, a flicker of hope, stupid and desperate, ignited in my chest. That I can't. The doctor is coming to talk to us. Her blood pressure is dangerously low. They're talking about admitting her to the cardiac ICU for observation. She has no one. Immunesia. No one. The hope sputtered and died, replaced by a colder, harder substance. She has you, I stated, and I have no one, because my person is with her. That's not fair. This isn't a competition. It is. And I lost. On my wedding day, the calm shattered. What is it? Michael, what's the real story here? Because I'm starting to think Sarah was right. Is this more than just neighbor-sister guilt? How dare you? He hissed, the protective fury back in full force. How dare you imply that when she's lying in a hospital bed, you're being selfish and cruel? Selfish. Selfish. A laugh, sharp and hysterical, bubbled out of me. I have spent 2 years being understanding. I've canceled dates. I've listened to every detailed description of her latest symptoms. I've watched you drop everything for her 100 times. I drew the line at my own wedding, and you stepped over it. I didn't have a choice. You always have a choice. You chose her. Silence again. Heavier this time. It was the silence of an ugly truth, finally voiced, hanging between us on the phone line. I have to go, he repeated, but the words were hollow now. A retreat. If you hang up, I said, my voice dropping to a deadly whisper, that this is over. You understand that, right? This isn't a postponement. This is a choice. Her or me. Right now. He didn't answer for what felt like an eternity. I heard him take a shaky breath. I heard Lily's voice again, clearer this time, weak and pleading. Mikey, my head hurts so much. Where's the nurse? And I heard his answer, not to me, but to her. His voice transforming from anger and conflict to soft, unwavering comfort, that I'm right here. Lil, I'll find her. Then, to me, a whisper filled with a guilt that changed nothing. That I'm sorry. Emily, I'm so sorry. I'll make this up to you. I swear. Click. I stood frozen, the dial tone buzzing in my ear. He'd chosen. In the moment of ultimate clarity, he'd chosen. The rage drained away, leaving behind a vast, hollow numbness. I looked at the phone in my hand. Call number 6. The next calls were a blur, a grim, determined ritual. Call hashtag 7.voicemail. My message, that just so we're clear, you're breaking up with me, via voicemail, on our wedding day. Classy. Call hashtag 8 that he picked up, sounding harried. Emily, for God's sake, what's her room number? I'll send the flowers from the altar. They're going to waste anyway. Stop it. Stop what? Caring. Too late. You already did that. I hung up. Call hashtag 9.voicemail. Call hashtag 10. From the hotel room phone. A blocked number. He picked up. Hello. Expecting a doctor. It's the ghost of wedding's future. I said, that you're a cliche. Michael. A pathetic, spineless cliche. I hung up before he could reply. Call hashtag 11. My phone again. This time, he answered with a roar. What do you want from me? I wanted you to show up. I screamed back, the numbness burning away in a final inferno of pain. I wanted to be your wife. I wanted a partner who put me first on the one day it was supposedto be non-negotiable. Was that really too much to ask? Was I asking for the moon? You're asking me to abandon someone who needs me in a life or death situation. What does that say about you? The accusation was so profound, so twisted. It stole the breath from my lungs. He'd reframed the entire narrative. My legitimate need had become a moral failing. It says I expected my husband to be my family. I said, my voice suddenly quiet, exhausted, and you've made it abundantly clear that your family is her. I heard a sound from him, a gasp, maybe the beginning of a rebuttal, but it was too late. The circuit had broken. Goodbye, Michael. Call hashtag 12 that I didn't even expect him to answer. I just needed to complete the sequence, to etch the final number on this day of humiliation. One for each month of the year we'd been engaged. It rang once, twice, and he picked up. No sound at first, just the sterile hum of the hospital. Emily. His voice was ragged, stripped raw. Please. It was the please that did it. Not, I'm coming. Not, I was wrong. Just please. A plea for me to absolve him, to understand, to once again shoulder the burden of his divided loyalty, so he wouldn't have to feel the full weight of his choice. I saw it all then, with crystalline clarity. The future, a lifetime of coming second, of anniversaries interrupted, of childbirth classes missed because Lily had a dot crisis, of Christmases where his phone buzzed constantly with her loneliness, a lifetime of being the reasonable one, the understanding one, while resentment poisoned everything. I took a deep, shuddering breath. The anger was gone. The pain was a dull, permanent ache. All that was left was a final, simple truth. No, I said, my voice clear and steady in the quiet room. That I called 12 times. Michael, 12 times I reached out, hoping for a different answer. You gave me the same one every time. You're with her, so stay with her. I didn't wait for a response. I ended the call. I placed the phone gently on the bedside table. I walked to the vanity, picked up my engagement ring. It was beautiful, a brilliant, flawless symbol of a promise that was equally flawed. Sarah must have heard the silence. She opened the door slowly, peeking in. Her face was wary, ready for more tears, more rage. I turned to her, the ring pinched between my thumb and forefinger. It's over, I said. The words were final, absolute. She walked in, closing the door behind her. What did he say? Nothing that matters. I looked around the bridal suite, at the tomb of my old life. Did I need to get out of this hotel? I need to go home. Sarah nodded. Dad, I'll pack your things. You. She gestured to my face. My hair. Dad, do you want help? I looked in the mirror. The bride stared back, but she was a stranger. Dad, no. I said, I think I need to do this part myself. 2. I went into the bathroom, turned on the faucet, and began to wash the makeup from my face. The dot waterproof. Mascara left black streaks like were paint down my cheeks. I scrubbed until my skin was raw and clean. I pulled the pins from my hair, letting the elaborate curls fall loose and heavy around my shoulders. When I emerged, in the jeans and t-shirt Sarah had laid out for me, I felt like a different person, lighter, and yet fundamentally shattered. Sarah had my suitcase packed. My wedding dress was zipped into a garment bag, a shroud for a corpse. Ready? She asked. I took one last look around. My gaze fell on the forgotten bridal bouquet on the floor by the door. I walked over, picked it up. The petals were bruised, browning at the edges. I didn't throw it. I didn't cry. I just carried it out with me. A ridiculous, poignant relic of the day I was supposed to get married. As I walked out of the hotel and into the uncertain, unraveled future, the ride to my apartment in Sarah's sensible Toyota Corolla was a study in silence. Not the peaceful kind, but the thick, heavy quiet that comes after a detonation. The world outside the window, the bustling streets of Baltimore on a Saturday afternoon, seemed to move in a different, crueler dimension. People laughed outside cafes, carried shopping bags, lived normal lives. My own felt like it had been sliced clean in two. Sarah didn't ask questions. She just drove, one hand on the wheel, the other reaching over periodically to squeeze my knee. A silent telegraph. I'm here. I'm not going anywhere. We pulled up to my building in Federal Hill, my third floor walk-up, the one Michael had been slowly moving out of and into the brownstone in Mount Vernon we'd picked out together. Our home. Now, just mine. Again, I fumbled with my keys. the familiar weight of them suddenly foreign. Sarah took them from my trembling hand, unlocked the door, and pushed it open. The air inside was still, stale, and it was a museum of a different kind. Not of a day that didn't happen, but of a life that was supposed to start. A half-packed box labeled Michael Office sat by the door. A framed photo of us from a sailing trip in Annapolis was on the console table. Our faces wind-whipped and smiling. A pair of his running shoes were kicked off near the couch. The ghost of him was everywhere. Oh, Eminesia, Sarah breathed, taking it in. The dam I'd been holding back since the church parking lot finally cracked. Not with sobs, but with a single, racking dry heave. No tears came. I was desiccated, hollowed out. Okay, Sarah said, her voice shifting into commander mode. First, we get rid of the obvious. She marched over to the console, picked up the photo, and flipped it face down. She kicked the running shoes towards the front door. Then, you're going to sit. I'm making tea. Or vodka. Your call. Vodka. In the tea. I managed. My voice gravelly from shouting. From disuse. I drifted into the living room, shedding my coat. My phone, which I'd kept on silent, now vibrated insistently in my pocket. I pulled it out. The screen was a wall of notifications. Texts from a dozen friends. OMG, are you okay? What happened? That we're here for you. Voicemails from my aunts. A missed call from my boss, Linda, and 3 more from Michael's mother, Barbara. I ignored them all. I opened Instagram. A masochistic impulse I immediately regretted. There, at the top of my feed, was a post from Chloe, one of my bridesmaids. A picture of all of us in our robes that morning, faces glowing, champagne flutes raised. The caption, posted 4 hours ago, screamed with irony that the most beautiful bride, so excited for the big day. Hashtag Team Emily, hashtag getting ready. The comments below were a horror show. Jenna.Reyes, what happened? We're at the church, and they just sent everyone home. Dave_Collins, 83. Yeah, seriously, is everything okay? Andy Anderson, such a beautiful picture. We're all waiting at the reception hall. Is there a delay? And then, the inevitable, from someone I didn't even know. Caddyab_92. I heard the groom didn't show. Left her at the altar. So sad. I slammed the phone face down on the coffee table. The humiliation was a living thing, crawling up my neck. Sarah came in with 2 mugs. She handed me one. It smelled of chamomile and something stronger. I took a sip. The vodka burned a welcome path down my throat. You have to turn it off, she said gently, nodding to the phone. Dot, or you'll drive yourself insane. I am insane, I muttered. That I agreed to marry a man who was already married to someone else's dysfunction. Before Sarah could reply, a new sound started. Not a buzz, but the old-fashioned trill of my landline. The one attached to my ancient answering machine. The one I kept for my grandmother. We both stared at the device on the kitchen counter. It rang again. Insistent. Ignore it, Sarah said. But I couldn't. It felt like a tether to the world I'd just left. I walked over, just as the machine picked up. My own cheerful, recorded voice filled the room. A relic from a happier time. Hi, you've reached Emily. Leave a message. A beep. Emily. Emily. Sweetheart. It's Barbara, Michael's mother. Her voice was strained, thick with tears. We're just devastated. We're at the hotel. We had no idea. I swear to God, we had no idea he would do this. That girl, that Lily has just, she's ruined him. She's ruined everything. Please, please call me back. We need to talk. We're so sorry. The message ended. The machine's red light blinked accusingly. Sarah snorted. A little late for apologies from the Bennett family. The words hung in the air. The Bennett family. I was supposed to be a Bennett. I'd practiced the signature. Emily Bennett. I'd ordered monogram towels. The landline rang again. Same number. This time, I picked it up. Hello, Barbara. Emily. Oh, thank God. She burst into fresh sobs. In the background, I could hear the low rumble of Michael's father, Robert, and the clink of glass. They were probably in the hotel, minibar. Where are you? Are you safe? I'm at my apartment. I'm safe. We're coming over. We need to see you. We need to explain. There's nothing to explain. Barbara, your son didn't want to marry me. The message was pretty clear. No, that's not it. It's that vampire. She spat the word with a venom that surprised me. Barbara Bennett was usually the picture of waspy restraint. She's been sucking the life out of him since they were kids. We tried, Robert and I, we tried to get him to see it. After her parents died, we took her in for a while. You know, but the neediness, it was pathological. And he just couldn't. He can't say no to her. It's like a sickness with him. I leaned against the counter. The receiver pressed to my ear. This was a new angle. I'd always felt a passive, polite disapproval from the Bennetts towards Lily, but never this raw, unfiltered hatred. Why are you telling me this now? I asked, my voice flat, because you have to understand. It's not you. It's never been you. He loves you. Emily, I know he does. This is his fatal flaw, his savior complex. He's in that hospital right now because he thinks he's the only thing keeping that girl alive. And it's a lie. She's manipulative and sick in the head. Barbara, I interrupted, the legal pad by the phone catching my eye. I needed to make a list of things to do when your life explodes. I appreciate the insight, but it doesn't change the facts. He left. I'm not going to marry someone who leaves. But you can fix this, she pleaded, her voice desperate. Go to the hospital, talk some sense into him, drag him out of there. He'll listen to you. The absurdity of it was breathtaking. You want me to go to the hospital on my wedding day and compete with an inpatient for my fiancé's attention. Is that your solution? She was silent for a moment. When she spoke again, it was quieter, defeated. I don't know what the solution is. I just know I've lost a daughter today, and I'm watching my son throw his life away for a ghost. The pain in her voice was real, but it wasn't my burden to carry. Not anymore. I'm sorry for your pain, Barbara. Truly. But I have to go. Wait. The arrangements. The wedding. What are you going to do? A practical question. My eyes scanned my apartment, landing on the Michael office. Box. I'm going to start by canceling everything. I said, a strange sense of purpose cutting through the fog. And then I'm going to pack his things. You should tell Michael to send someone for them. Or I'll have them dropped at your place by the end of the week. Emily. No, don't do anything rash. Goodbye, Barbara. I hung up. The finality of the click was louder than any scream. Sarah was staring at me, mug suspended halfway to her lips. Holy shit, she really went there. Huh, she's desperate, I said, but the word felt inadequate. I picked up the pen and wrote on the legal pad, 1, cancel everything. My phone buzzed again. This time, it was a text from an unknown number. Unknown, Emily. It's Jason, Michael's best man. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. I had no idea. He texted us this morning saying he was running late, but on his way. We all believed him. I'm at a loss. I'm here for you. Okay, whatever you need. Jason, a good guy, loyal to a fault. Clearly, I typed back, my fingers stiff. Me, not your fault. Jason, thanks. His reply was immediate. Jason, he's not answering anyone. His parents are losing it. I'm at the hotel trying to help herd people. It's a nightmare. I heard what happened. About Lily. I always thought it was weird. You know, but I never thought he'd. The 3 dots pulsed as he struggled for words. Jason, I never thought he'd do this. Another text popped up. This one for my sister, Jessica. Jess, mom is sedated. Dad is on the warpath. I'm handling the family. Don't worry about them. What do you want me to do about everything else? People are asking. I looked at the legal pad. The list needed to grow. I took a deep, fortifying gulp of the spiked tea. Okay, I said to Sarah, my voice shifting into a tone I recognized from work.crisp. Decisive, managing a crisis. We need a triage. Help me make a list. For the next hour, we called. We called the band leader, a jovial man named Tony who turned somber and professional. No problem. Ms. Thorne, we haven't loaded in. Consider it canceled. No fee. My condolences. We called the caterer, the florist, the bakery. Each call was a fresh humiliation, a succinct explanation the wedding is canceled. Yes, immediately. Please donate the food. No, we don't need the cake. Yes, charge the cancellation fee to the card on file. With each completed call, I felt a piece of the day's weight lift, replaced by the heavier, more permanent weight of reality. My phone buzzed once more. This time, it was Michael. Not a call, a text. Michael, Emily, please, we need to talk. In person. I'm leaving the hospital. Can I come over? I stared at the words. I'm leaving the hospital.so. Lily was stable, or he'd finally hired a sitter. The old, broken part of me, the part that had loved him, twitched with a pathetic spark of hope. Maybe he'd seen the light. Maybe he was coming to beg on his knees. Sarah read the text over my shoulder. Don't you dare, she warned. Me, there's nothing to talk about. His reply was almost instant. Michael, there's everything to talk about. I made a terrible mistake, a catastrophic mistake. Please, just let me see you. Let me explain. The phrasing grated. A mistake, like he'd chosen the wrong entree, not shattered my life and our future. Me, your explanation was pretty clear, 12 times clear. I'm not interested in hearing you justify it. Michael, I'm not trying to justify it. I'm trying to apologize. I'm outside your building. The blood drained from my face. Sarah saw my expression. He's here. I walked to the window, peering through the blinds. There, leaning against a familiar blue Subaru, was Michael. He was still in his wedding tux, though the jacket was off. The bow tie hung loose around his neck. His head was in his hands. He looked utterly destroyed. A part of me, a deep, stupid, loving part, ached to run down there, to fold him into my arms, to believe that this was rock bottom and we could only go up from here. But the newer, harder part, the one forged in the fire of those 12 phone calls, saw something else. She saw the performance of remorse. She saw a man who expected to be forgiven because his pain looked so real. He's here, I confirmed, my voice hollow. Sarah joined me at the window. That son of a bitch. My phone buzzed again. Michael, I'm not leaving until you talk to me. The ultimatum, the final, desperate play for control. It ignited the fury again, clean and sharp. I typed my reply, my fingers flying. Me, then you'll be there a long time. Because I have nothing to say to you. And if you're not gone in 5 minutes, I'm calling the police and having you removed for trespassing. You've humiliated me enough for one day. Don't add a restraining order to the list. I hit send. I watched him below. He straightened up, reading the text. He looked at my window. I didn't move away from the blinds. Let him see me seeing him. His shoulders slumped. He looked broken, defeated. He got in his car. He didn't drive away immediately. He just sat there, the car idling. I turned my back on the window. I couldn't watch anymore. The spectacle was over. Good, Sarah said, her voice full of grim satisfaction. Now, what's next on the list? I looked at the legal pad. I'd written 1. Cancel everything. 2. Pack his things. I picked up the pen, my hand steady for the first time all day. I drew a dark, decisive line through the word .his and wrote above it, in all caps, .Michaels. Next, I said, walking to the box by the door and flipping open the cardboard flaps. We start with this. The box was a Pandora's chest of our shared life, and I was throwing it all into the void. A stack of his graphic novels I'd never read, a coffee mug with a faded logo from his college rugby team, a spare charging cable. Each item was a relic, weightless in my hand, but heavy with memory. I dropped them into the box with a dull thud. Sarah worked beside me in silence, her efficiency a stark contrast to my methodical, almost archaeological dredging. She was packing a life. I was conducting an autopsy. My phone buzzed on the counter. I ignored it. It buzzed again and again, a frantic, insistent rhythm. It might be your mom again, Sarah said quietly, folding one of Michael's flannel shirts that had been draped over a chair. It's not. I knew. The tone of the silence between the vibrations was different. It was him. It was the sound of a man whose grand, repentant gesture at my doorstep had failed. Scrambling for a new strategy, I let it go to voicemail. A minute later, a notification popped up. You have one new voicemail. Curiosity, that vicious serpent, coiled in my gut. I wiped my dusty hands on my jeans and picked up the phone. I pressed play and put it on speaker, letting the sound fill the apartment we were systematically erasing him from. Emily. His voice was ragged, raw. He was driving. I could hear the hum of the car engine, the faint swish of tires on wet pavement. It had started to rain. I'm not coming back. To your place. I mean, you made yourself clear. A bitter, self-pitying laugh. God, you have every right. Look, I'm going back to the hospital. Lily's being admitted. They want to keep her overnight for observation. Her EKG was weird. They're worried. He paused, as if waiting for me to gasp, to ask for details, to express concern. The silence stretched. Accusatory. Right. Anyway, I needed you to know where I was. In case, I don't know, in case you changed your mind about talking. I'll be at Mercy General, room 412. I'll be here all night. The message ended. Sarah stopped packing. A pair of his running socks balled in her fist. He did not just give you her room number, like you're supposed to send flowers. I stared at the phone. Room 412. An invitation. Or a taunt. Come see where I chose to be. The numbness that had protected me began to crackle. Not with pain, but with a cold, clear fury. This wasn't just betrayal. It was a performance. And he was still on stage, playing the tragic, self-sacrificing hero to an audience of one sick girl. And he just handed me a ticket. I'm going, I said, my voice startlingly calm. Sarah's head snapped up. Going? Going where? To bed. Because that's the only place you should be going. To the hospital. Emily. No, absolutely not. That is a terrible idea. That is walking into the lion's den wearing a meat suit. He wants you to come. He wants a scene. He wants to force a resolution where he gets to be the good guy caught in a tough spot. I know what he wants, I said, walking to my bedroom. I pulled a hoodie over my t-shirt. But this isn't about him anymore. It's about me. I need to see it. I need to see him with her. I need to hear her voice. I need to look at this thing that was more important than me. And I need to understand what it really is. Otherwise, I'll spend the rest of my life wondering if I overreacted, if it was just bad timing, if I could have been more understanding. I need to kill the ghost. Sarah. She followed me to the door, her face etched with worry. Then let me come with you. For backup. I shook my head. This is something I have to do alone. I'll call you when I'm out. I promise. The drive to Mercy General was a blur of rain-smeared streetlights and my own white-knuckled grip on the steering wheel. My heart was a frantic drum against my ribs, but my mind was eerily clear. This wasn't a reconciliation mission. This was a fact-finding expedition. I was going to gather the final, incontrovertible evidence I needed to convict my own relationship of terminal neglect. The hospital lobby was a brightly lit purgatory of beige and linoleum. The smell of antiseptic and despair was overwhelming. I walked to the information desk, my sneakers squeaking on the floor. "I'm here to see Lily Reynolds. Room 412, I said, my voice flat. The volunteer, an elderly woman with a kind smile, tapped at her computer. "Are you family?" A loaded question. "I'm a friend of the family. I was told she was admitted tonight." The woman nodded, buying the vague explanation. "Fourth floor, West Wing. Elevators are around the corner." The elevator ride was interminable. The doors opened onto a quiet hallway. The lights dimmed for the evening. The only sounds were the distant beep of monitors and the soft shuffle of a nurse's shoes. Room 412 was halfway down. The door was partially open. A wedge of yellow light spilled into the hall. I stopped a few feet away, my breath catching in my throat. I could see inside. Lily was propped up in the bed, looking small and pale against the stark white sheets, and 4 was taped to the back of her hand. She was wearing a standard issue hospital gown. Her light brown hair fanned out on the pillow, and there, sitting in a chair pulled so close to the bed his knees were almost touching the mattress, was Michael. He was still in his dress pants and the now wrinkled white shirt from his tux. He was holding her hand, his thumb stroking her knuckles. His back was to me, but his posture was one of utter absorption. "You scared me today, Lil," he was saying, his voice so soft, so intimate it made my skin crawl. "I'm sorry, Mikey," she whispered, her voice a frail, breathy thing. "I didn't mean to ruin everything." "Sure, don't think about that. Don't even say that. You didn't ruin anything. Your health is all that matters. Your health is all that matters." The words hit me like a physical blow. Our wedding, our vows, our future, reduced to that. But Emily, Lily's voice trembled. "She must hate me." Michael sighed, a sound of profound weariness. Emily doesn't understand. She never really tried to understand what you go through. She sees it as a competition. It's not. It's just, this is where I need to be. The rewrite of history was happening in real time. My years of patience, my swallowed frustrations, my attempts to set boundaries that all recast as a failure of empathy, as petty jealousy. I must have made a sound, a sharp intake of breath, because Michael's head turned slightly. He didn't see me in the shadowed hallway, but Lily's eyes, over his shoulder, met mine. For a fraction of a second, there was no weakness in her gaze, no fragility. I saw a flash of something cold, calculating, and triumphant. It was gone in an instant, replaced by wide-eyed, fearful innocence. "Mikey," she said, her voice tightening. Michael turned fully, following her gaze. When he saw me standing there, his face went through a rapid series of transformations. Shock, guilt, panic, and finally, a defensive anger. He dropped Lily's hand as if it were hot and stood up. "Emily, what are you doing here?" I stepped into the light of the doorway, crossing my arms over my chest. "You invited me. Remember, room 412. He moved to block my view of Lily, a protective gesture so instinctive it was more damning than any words. "This isn't the place. It's the only place," I said, my eyes darting past him to Lily. "So this is the famous Lily." She shrank back against her pillows, pulling the thin blanket higher. "Emily, I'm so sorry. This is all my fault. Please don't be angry with Mikey. He was just trying to help me." The performance was masterful. The quivering lip, the tear-filled eyes. She was the picture of guilt-ridden vulnerability. Save it, I said, my voice like ice. That I just have one question for you. Lily, was it worth it? Sabotaging his wedding, getting your Mikey all to yourself for the night. Was the payoff worth being poked and prodded in a hospital? Her face crumpled into genuine-looking tears. How can you say that? I was unconscious. I could have died. Emily, that's enough. Michael stepped toward me, his voice low and dangerous. How dare you come here and accuse her of faking? Look at her. Look at the monitors. I am looking. I shot back, my composure cracking. I'm looking at a woman who has you wrapped so tightly around her finger you abandoned your own wedding. What was the diagnosis? Michael, what was so dire it couldn't wait for a single hour? Or did you even bother to ask for details before you sprinted out of your own life? He flinched. Vasovagal syncope, brought on by severe anxiety and dehydration. Her blood pressure bottomed out. It was serious. Vasovagal syncope. I repeated slowly. A fancy term for fainting. From anxiety. Gee, I wonder what she was so anxious about today. Lily let out a choked sob. That I was anxious about being alone, knowing you were all celebrating, and I was just by myself. It's my fault. I'm too needy. I always have been. Yes, I said, locking eyes with her. You are. Get out. Michael roared, pointing toward the hallway. A nurse appeared at the station down the hall, looking alarmed. Get out of here. Emily, you have no right. I have every right. I shouted back, the pain and rage of the day exploding out of me. That I had the right to expect my fiancé at our wedding. She has you for a few hours of monitoring. And I have a lifetime of humiliation because you can't tell the difference between caring for someone and being emotionally hostage to them. Lily was crying in earnest now. Dramatic, gulping sobs. Stop fighting. Please, Mikey. Just make her go. My heart. It's racing. I can feel it. Michael spun back to her, instantly attentive. That's okay. Lil, I'm here. Just breathe. He jabbed the call button for the nurse. Then he turned to me, his face a mask of hatred I'd never seen before. That if anything happens to her because of this stress, I will never forgive you. Now get the fuck out. The finality in his voice, the absolute allegiance declared in this sterile room, was the last piece of evidence I needed. The ghost was dead. It had never been a ghost. It had been a living, breathing rival. And I had lost. The nurse hurried in, giving me a disapproving frown as she went to Lily's bedside. I looked at Michael, who was now holding Lily's hand again, murmuring reassurances. He didn't look back at me. There were no more words. Nothing left to scream. I had my answer. I turned and walked out of room 412, down the bright, silent hallway. The elevator doors closed, and I was alone with the reflection of a woman who had finally seen the truth. In all its ugly, undeniable clarity, I pulled out my phone and texted Sarah. Me coming home. You were right. It was a meat suit, but I saw it. It's over. As I walked out into the cool, rain-washed night, I didn't feel the crushing grief I expected. I felt something else. A grim, clean emptiness. A scorched earth where my future had been. But at least the fire was out. The lies were ashes. I got in my car and drove away from Mercy General, away from room 412, away from Michael and Lily and their sick, tangled little world. For the first time since the church, I was driving toward something, not just away from something, even if I didn't know what it was yet. The emptiness from the hospital lasted precisely the length of the drive home. As I pulled into my parking space, the grim clarity was replaced by a bone-deep exhaustion. The adrenaline had burned off, leaving only the cold ash of reality. I trudged up the 3 flights of stairs, each step heavier than the last. Sarah was waiting, pacing my small living room like a caged tiger. The sight of the half-packed boxes, Michael's life in cardboard coffins made my stomach lurch. Well, she demanded, stopping mid-pace. What happened? Are you okay? I've been going out of my mind. I dropped my keys on the counter with a clatter. You were right. It was a performance. A fucking Oscar-worthy performance. And I was the villain who crashed the set. I relayed the scene in the hospital room. My voice monotone. The way he'd held her hand. The way he'd rewritten our history. The cold triumph in Lily's eyes. By the time I finished, Sarah's face was pale with fury. That manipulative little bitch. And he's so far up her ass he can't see daylight. You're well shot of him. Eminencia. I mean it. I know. I said. And for the first time, I actually felt it. There was no wistful longing. No, what if? There was only disgust and a profound, weary relief. He made his choice, and now I'm making mine. I want his stuff out. Tonight. Sarah blinked. Tonight. It's almost 11. I don't care. I can't sleep with the ghost of his socks in my drawer. Help me. We worked in a silent, determined frenzy for the next 2 hours. It was shocking how much of him had already migrated into my space. Clothes from his closet, toiletries from my bathroom, books from my shelves, the fancy espresso machine he'd insisted we needed, the vinyl records he'd started collecting. We packed it all with a brutal efficiency. No sentiment spared. The wedding photo I'd already taken off the wall went face down into a box labeled Darasechaiti. By 1 a.m., we had stacked 10 boxes and 3 garbage bags by the front door. It looked like a bazaar, pathetic yard sale. My apartment felt larger, emptier, and infinitely cleaner. What now? Sarah asked, wiping her dusty hands on her jeans. We can't drag this to his place. And I'm not calling an Uber XL. I'll call his parents in the morning. I said, my voice raspy. They can deal with it. I sagged onto the couch, the full weight of the day finally pressing down. Go home. Sarah, get some sleep. I'll be okay. She looked skeptical. That I can sleep on the couch. No, I need to be alone. I promise. I'm not going to do anything stupid. I'm just going to sleep for a week. After extracting a promise that I'd call if I needed anything. Anything at all. She finally left. The silence she left behind was immense. I sat in the dark living room, surrounded by the ghostly outlines where his things used to be, and waited to feel something. Sorrow, rage, self-pity, but I just felt numb, hollowed out. I must have dozed off, because the sound that woke me wasn't my alarm. It was the buzzer for the building's front door, a harsh, insistent BRA that drilled into my skull. I jolted upright, disoriented. The digital clock on the microwave glowed, 2:47 a.m. BRRRZZZZT. My first, sleep-fogged thought was Michael. He'd come back. He'd seen the light. He was here to beg. A stupid, traitorous flicker of hope ignited in my chest before I ruthlessly smothered it. No, not after the hospital. Not after the way he'd looked at me. I shuffled to the intercom by the door. Who is it? My voice was thick with sleep. Emily. It's me. It wasn't Michael's voice. It was higher, thinner, wobbly. Lily. The numbness evaporated, replaced by a white-hot surge of disbelief. She was here. How? Why? Had she discharged herself? Had Michael driven her? Was this some new, bizarre twist in their codependent drama? Go away, Lily, I said into the intercom, my voice flat. Please, please, I just need to talk to you. For 5 minutes. I'm all alone. I'm scared. The fragility in her voice was a practiced instrument. I'd heard its melody my entire relationship. Call Michael. That's what you do, isn't it? He had to go home, to change, to deal with everything. Please, Emily, I'm not feeling well. I just need to sit down for a second. A cough, weak and pathetic, followed the statement. Anger, cold and sharp, cut through my fatigue. The sheer audacity to show up at my apartment in the middle of the night after destroying my wedding day, to play the sick, scared victim on my doorstep. A dark, reckless part of me woke up, the part that had wanted to see the monster in the light. She'd brought it to my door. I pressed the button to unlock the building's front door. Come up. I didn't turn on more lights. I just stood in the middle of my living room, arms crossed, waiting. A minute later, a soft knock. I opened the door. Lily Reynolds stood in my hallway, dwarfed by a too big navy peacoat that I recognized as Michael's. She was pale, her eyes red-rimmed. She looked young, fragile, and utterly out of place. The hospital bracelet was still on her wrist. "Hi," she whispered, her eyes darting past me into the dim apartment, taking in the boxes by the door. 5 minutes, I said, not moving to let her in further. Start talking. She flinched at my tone, but slipped inside, hovering just past the threshold. I came to apologize. Properly. What happened today? It was my fault. All my fault. Yes. I agreed, coldly, that it was. She looked startled, as if she'd expected me to argue, to offer the usual social platitudes. "Oh, no, don't blame yourself." She was playing a script. And I'd refused my line. I never meant for any of this to happen. She pressed on, tears welling in her eyes. They looked real. Maybe they were. Michael. He's just so good. Too good. He feels responsible for me. After my parents died, he was the only one who was always there. He's my rock. And I'm just a burden. I know I am. She was laying it on thick. The self-pity a weapon to elicit sympathy. I said nothing, just watched her. When I woke up this morning, she continued, her voice dropping to a confessional whisper. "Dad, and I knew it was your wedding day. I just panicked. The thought of him being yours. Completely. Of being left alone. I felt dizzy, sick, and then, I guess I passed out. It was real. Emily, I swear it was real. I believe you," I said. Her eyes widened slightly. "That I believe you felt sick at the thought of him marrying me. I believe you had an anxiety attack. What I don't believe is that it was an uncontrollable medical event that just happened to require his immediate and sole attention during our wedding ceremony. You've had crises before. You have his number on speed dial. You could have called 911. You could have called a neighbor, but you called him, and he came running, like he always does." The tears spilled over, tracing clean lines down her cheeks. "You think I did it on purpose." Her voice was a breathy, wounded thing. "You think I'm that evil. I think you're a woman who doesn't want to share her favorite toy." I said, my words brutal and precise. "And I think you'll do whatever it takes, including making yourself sick, to keep him tied to you. But here's the thing, Lily, you won." She blinked, confused. "What? You won. He chose you, in the most public, humiliating way possible. He picked you. Congratulations. The prize is a 30-year-old man with a savior complex and no backbone. He's all yours." The vulnerability on her face hardened, just for a fraction of a second. The mask slipped, and I saw the sharp intelligence, the calculation, beneath the delicate features. "That he loves me," she said, and the tone had changed. It was less a plea, more a statement. "I'm sure he thinks he does." I replied, "But it's not love. It's guilt. It's obligation. It's a habit he's too weak to break. And now it's your problem, not mine." The shift was instant. The tears stopped. The frail posture straightened. The wide, innocent eyes narrowed. The performance was over. "You were never right for him," she said, her voice losing its wispy quality. It was colder, clearer. "That you're too hard, too demanding. You wanted him to change, to abandon me. He could never be happy with someone so selfish." I actually laughed. A short, sharp sound in the quiet apartment. Selfish. That's Rich. You, who has siphoned his time, his energy, his emotional life for years. You, who faints on cue to get your way. You're a black hole, Lily. And Michael was so busy playing hero. He didn't notice he was getting sucked into the void. Her face flushed with real anger now. You don't know anything about what we have. He understands me. He takes care of me. He's the only person who's ever really seen me. He sees a project. I fired back. A broken doll to fix. And you love it. You love being the broken doll. Because as long as you're broken, he can't leave. Well, guess what? The doll won. You have your keeper. Now, get out of my apartment. She didn't move. Her eyes darted again to the boxes. A smug, ugly little smile touched her lips. Packing his things. How very final of you. He'll be relieved. He was just too nice to do it himself. That was it. The last thread of my control snapped. I took a step towards her. Get out. Or what? She challenged, lifting her chin. That you'll push the sick girl. Call the cops. Go ahead. Tell them I terrified you in my hospital gown and your fiancé's coat. We stood there, locked in a silent, furious standoff in the dim light of my entryway. The pretense was completely gone. This was the real Lily, the one Michael never saw or chose not to see. Vindictive, possessive, and deeply, profoundly broken in a way no amount of his care could ever fix. The buzz of the intercom shattered the silence. We both jumped. I walked over and pressed the button. What? Emily. It's Michael. Let me up. His voice was strained, frantic. I looked at Lily. Her expression was a mixture of panic and cunning. She hadn't expected him so soon. I pressed the unlock button without a word. A moment later, I heard his pounding footsteps on the stairs. He appeared in the doorway, breathless, still in the same wrinkled clothes from the hospital. His eyes swept past me, locking onto Lily. Lily, Jesus Christ, what are you doing here? The nurse said you signed yourself out against medical advice. Are you insane? He rushed to her side, hands hovering as if she might shatter. I had to talk to her. Mikey, Lily whispered, the fragile mask slamming back into place. She swayed on her feet. I had to make her understand. I felt so guilty. He caught her as she leaned into him, shooting me a look of pure venom. What did you do to her? What did you say? The absurdity of it was cosmic. I started laughing. I couldn't help it. A raw, humorless laugh that shook my whole body. Are you kidding me? She shows up at my apartment at 3 a.m. to gloat. And in the villain, she just admitted she faked being sick to ruin our wedding. Lily let out a gasp, burying her face in Michael's chest. That I didn't. I never said that. She's twisting my words. She hates me. Mikey. She always has. See what you've done. Michael snarled at me, holding Lily close. That you've made her hysterical. She just got out of the hospital. The triangulation was complete. I was the aggressor. She was the victim. He was the noble protector. It was a dynamic they'd perfected over a lifetime. And I was finally, irrefutably, on the outside of it. My laughter died. I looked at Michael. Really looked at him. A.T. the man I'd loved. The man I'd wanted to build a life with. He was a stranger. A handsome, hollow stranger, holding his broken prize. Get her out of my home. I said, my voice deadly quiet. And take your things. I gestured to the tower of boxes. That it's all there. Every last trace of you. If it's not gone by tomorrow, it goes to the curb. Michael's eyes flickered to the boxes. A flicker of pain finally breaking through his anger. Emily, don't. I cut him off. There's nothing left to say. You made your choice. 12 times. In a hospital room. And now here. You look at her. And you see someone to save. You look at me. And you see a problem. So go. Save her. It's all you've ever wanted to do. For a long moment, he just stood there, Lily clinging to him. I saw the war in his eyes, the habit of us. the history, battling against the overwhelming pull of her need. The need won, as it always did, without another word. He bent and picked up two of the heaviest boxes. "Come on, Lil," he said, his voice gruff. Let's go home." She shot me one last, triumphant look over his shoulder as he maneuvered her and the boxes out the door. It wasn't the look of a sick girl. It was the look of a conqueror. I closed the door behind them. I listened to their footsteps recede down the stairs, to the muffled sound of the building's front door closing. Then, and only then, in the profound and absolute silence of my emptied apartment, did I slide down the back of the door to the floor. The tears finally came that hot, silent, and cleansing, not for him, not for us, but for the woman I'd been, the one who had believed she could be enough to break a spell that was older and stronger than her love. It was over, truly, finally over. The ghost was gone, and the uninvited guest had shown me exactly what I'd lost and exactly what I'd gained. My freedom. The silence after the door clicked shut was different. Before, it had been heavy with absence, with the ghost of a life half-lived. Now, it was just quiet, a neutral space. My space. I sat on the floor, my back against the door, until the weak, gray light of a Baltimore dawn seeped around the edges of the blinds. The tears had dried into stiff tracks on my cheeks. I felt scraped raw, hollowed out, but also, for the first time, clean. My phone, which had mercifully been silent for a few hours, began to buzz on the coffee table. Not calls, texts, a cascade of them. "Mom, 6:02 a.m., sweetheart. Your father and I are coming over. We're bringing breakfast. Don't argue. Jessica, 6:15 a.m., Mom is force-feeding me bagels and planning your recovery. Send help. But also, I love you. Sarah, 6:30 a.m., you alive. Did the bitch from hell actually show up? I'm bringing coffee and a baseball bat. Chloe, 7:05 a.m., hey. Just checking in. No need to reply. We're all here for you. Fuck that guy. Aunt Carol, 7:22 a.m., Emily. Dear, I heard. That no good son of a well. You're better off. Call if you need anything." There were dozens more, from college friends, work colleagues, distant cousins. The news had rippled outwards. A stone of scandal dropped into the placid pond of our social circles. The humiliation was public, total. I stood up, my joint stiff. I ignored the phone. I walked to the shower and turned the water as hot as I could stand. I scrubbed my skin until it was pink, washing away the smell of the hospital, the feel of Michael's peacoat on Lily's shoulders, the lingering shame of the day before. When I emerged, wrapped in a towel, the apartment smelled of coffee. Sarah was in my kitchen, unloading a cardboard carrier with 2 large cups. Picked the lock. She said without preamble, handing me one. "Extra shot of espresso. You look like hell. Thanks." I took the cup, the heat seeping into my hands. And she did show up. Sarah's eyes widened. Shut the front door. She came here, after the hospital, like a homing pigeon, to apologize, and then to gloat. And then Michael showed up to rescue her from the big bas d'exfiancé. I took a long sip of coffee. That it was illuminating. It's psychotic. She's a stage 5 clinger with a PhD in manipulation. And he's her enabler. They deserve each other. Sarah leaned against the counter, studying me. "You seem okay. Weirdly okay." "I am okay," I said, and realized it was true. The storm had passed. I was standing in the wreckage. But I was standing. I saw it. Sarah, the whole ugly truth, right in my living room. There's nothing left to wonder about. Nothing left to fight for. It's just done. The buzzer sounded. My parents. What followed was a long, painful day of love and awkwardness. My mother cried again, hugging me too tightly. My father stomped around. muttering about lawsuits and horsewhipping that boy. They brought bagels and lox, and we ate them in silence at my kitchen table, the absence of celebration a palpable thing. "What will you do?" my mother finally asked, her hand covering mine. "About everything. I already canceled the vendors." I said that I'll need to return gifts. Write thank you notes that say, "Sorry, the groom was an asshole, but thanks for the blender." My father choked on his coffee. My mother gave a watery smile. "Dado, Emily, I'm kidding. Mostly. I'll figure it out." After they left, promising to check in every hour, I faced the practical abyss. The wedding had been a joint project, but the cancellation was mine alone. I spent the afternoon on the phone and my laptop, a numb automaton. I contacted the venue, the caterer again, the photographer, the band confirming the cancellations and authorizing the penalties. Each call, each email, was a tiny amputation. I canceled the honeymoon to Bali, swallowing the non-refundable deposit. I drafted a bland, heartbreaking email to the guest list, which Jessica and Sarah took over sending, sparing me the replies. The most daunting task was the gifts. They were piled in the spare bedroom, a mountain of optimism wrapped in shiny paper. I opened a notepad. TODO. Cancel everything. Pack Michael's things. Return gifts. Change my name. No, not his. Find a therapist. Breathe. Number 5 was the only one that felt proactive instead of reactive. The thought had been bubbling since my conversation with Sarah the night before the wedding, when she'd called Lily a red flag in a neon sign. I dismissed it, but she'd been right. Why had I been so willing to ignore what was so obvious to everyone else? I found a therapist, Dr. Evelyn Reed, through my insurance portal. Her bio mentioned specializing in relationship dynamics and self-worth. I'd booked a video appointment for the following Tuesday. By evening, I was emotionally numb. Sarah had ordered pizza, and we sat on my floor, surrounded by boxes of returned gifts, eating straight from the box. "You know what you need," Sarah said, wiping grease from her chin. "A project. Something that's just yours. Not cleaning up his mess. Something new." "Like what?" "Learning to macrame. Adopting a feral cat. Something that uses that scary smart brain of yours for something other than dissecting your ex's pathologies." She pointed her pizza crust at me. "That campaign for the new eco-cleaning product line at Sterling Low. You were obsessed with it before. All this. Dive back in. Bury yourself in work. It's a great distraction, and it'll remind you that you're a badass who runs marketing campaigns, not just a woman who got left at the altar." She was right. Work had been my sanctuary before Michael. It could be again. The next morning, I put on real clothes, not pajamas, and logged into my work email for the first time since the day. 100 unread messages, but at the top was one from my boss, Linda Sterling. Subject checking in. From Linda Sterling. "Emily, I heard about what happened. I'm so very sorry. Please take all the time you need. Family medical leave is available if you want it. Don't worry about a thing here. Warmly, Linda." It was kind, understanding, and it made my skin crawl. The thought of sitting in this apartment for weeks, defined solely by what had happened to me, was unbearable. I hit reply. Subject, checking in. From Emily Thorne. "Linda, thank you for your kindness. I'd actually prefer to come back to work as soon as possible. I find routine helpful. I'll be online today and in the office tomorrow, if that's all right. The Green Pure campaign could use my focus. Best, Emily." Her reply was almost instantaneous. Subject, checking in. From Linda Sterling. "You're sure?" "Of course. Whatever you need. The team will be glad to have you back. The Green Pure brainstorm is Thursday. Your insights were missed. It was a lifeline Dr. Evelyn Reed's face was calm and kind on my laptop screen the following Tuesday. Her office was a blur of books and soft lighting in the background. "So, Emily," she said, her voice gentle, "why don't you tell me what brings you here?" I took a deep breath. My fiancé left me at the altar a week ago for his neighbor, who had a medical emergency. I heard the quotes in my own voice. "I see," she said, nodding, "that's a profound betrayal. I'm so sorry you're going through that. What would you like to focus on in our work together? The grief, the anger." I thought about it. I want to understand why I didn't see it coming. Everyone else did. My best friend, Sarah, she warned me. I thought she was being dramatic. I thought I was being understanding. But I was just being blind or stupid. Let's not use words like stupid. Dr. Reed said, "Our brains are excellent at constructing narratives that allow us to stay in situations that feel familiar, even if they're unhealthy. Tell me about your relationship with Michael before the wedding. What were the points of conflict?" And so I told her about the canceled dates, the interrupted vacations, the way Lily's needs always took precedence, the quiet resentment I'd swallowed, the fights we'd had, where he'd always framed my frustration as a lack of compassion. "It sounds like you were often in a position of competing for his attention and loyalty," Dr. Reed observed. "And when you voiced a need, it was characterized as a character flaw, the lack of empathy, rather than a legitimate request in a partnership." "Yes," I said, the validation, a cool balm on a burn I hadn't fully acknowledged. "Exactly. And before Michael, in past relationships, or in your family growing up, did you often find yourself in the role of the understanding one, the one who didn't make waves?" The question landed like a depth charge. I thought of my parents' marriage, solid, loving, but with my mother quietly smoothing over my father's occasional gruffness. I thought of my own dating history, the series of nice but slightly disappointing men I'd dated before Michael, where I'd always been the one to adjust, to accommodate, maybe. I admitted slowly. I think I saw putting others first as a virtue, a strength. It can be a strength, Dr. Reed said, but not when it comes at the total expense of your own needs. Not when it allows someone to repeatedly cross your boundaries. You set a boundary, Emily, a very clear one. Our wedding day is non-negotiable. He crossed it, and the consequence was the end of the relationship. That's not you being hard. That's you having self-respect. The words self-respect-code in the quiet of my apartment long after the session ended. Work became my refuge. I threw myself into the Green Peer campaign. I was the first one online in the morning and the last to log off. I scheduled brainstorming sessions, tore apart mediocre copy, and built presentations with a fierce, focused energy that my team initially met with wary concern, then with growing admiration. "Thorne, you're a machine," Ben from design said during one late-night video call. "Did you mainline green tea or something? This concept is brilliant." I hadn't been brilliant before. I'd been good, but distracted, always thinking of Michael, of wedding plans, of Lily's latest crisis. Now, there was only the work. 3 weeks post-wedding that wasn't. I was in the office, polishing the final pitch deck. My phone buzzed with an unknown number. I almost ignored it, but something made me pick up. "Emily Thorne." "Emily, it's Barbara Bennett." Michael's mother sounded older, wearier than she had on that frantic phone call. I leaned back in my chair. "Barbara, I'm calling because Robert and we never properly. We owe you so much more than an apology over the phone. You don't owe me anything." I said, my voice even. "We do. We failed you. We saw what was happening with that girl for years. And we were too polite, too afraid of pushing Michael away to really intervene. We enabled it. And you paid the price." Her voice broke. "That we lost you. And we're losing him." He's moved her into his house. You know, officially. Says she shouldn't be alone after her trauma. The derision in her voice when she said trauma was scathing. I felt a pang, not for Michael, but for the decent people caught in his orbit. That I'm sorry, Barbara, that must be very hard for you. We're seeing a family therapist, trying to understand all of this. She took a shaky breath. That I just wanted you to know that we know where the blame lies. And it's not with you. You were a light in our family. And we're so sorry. The call left me unsettled. It was a closure I hadn't known I needed. But it also felt like the final nail in a coffin. The Bennetts were mourning the daughter-in-law that never was. Their son was lost to them, swallowed whole by his own need to be needed. That night, I had my second session with Dr. Reed. His mother called. I told her. She apologized, said he's moved Lillian. And how did that make you feel? I considered. Sad for them, relieved for me, and curious. What does a life built on that foundation even look like? Is he happy? Is this what he wanted all along? Does it matter? Dr. Reed asked gently. I thought about it. No. I said finally that it doesn't. His happiness is no longer my concern. My happiness is, Dr. Reed smiled, that, Emily, is what we call progress. The breakthrough came a week later. I was cleaning out a closet, finally tackling the last physical remnants, when I found a journal, not a recent one, but from the first year Michael and I were dating. I'd been so happy, so in love. I flipped it open, reading my own bubbly script. Met M's neighbor sister, Lily, today. She's so tiny and sad. Can't imagine losing both parents so young. M is so sweet with her. It's actually one of the things I love about him. How caring he is. I turned a few pages. Lily had another episode tonight. M had to run over during our movie. I get it. I do. But it's the third time this month. Starting to feel like a pattern. Another entry. 6 months in. Fight with M about Lily. He says I'm jealous. I'm not jealous. I just want one date. One. Where we're not interrupted by her crisis. He says I need to be more compassionate. Maybe he's right. I'm being selfish. Note to self. Try harder. There it was. In my own handwriting. The narrative he'd sold me. And that I'd bought. My legitimate needs recast as character flaws. My boundaries painted as selfishness. I gaslit myself. Page after page, year after year. I didn't feel angry reading it. I felt a profound pity for the young woman who wrote those words. She was trying so hard to be good enough, to be the understanding girlfriend, that she'd made herself smaller and smaller to fit into the shrinking space he'd left for her. I closed the journal. I didn't throw it away. I put it on a shelf, a relic, not of love, but of a lesson. At my next therapy session, I told Dr. Reed about it, that I was complicit. I said that I trained him to believe I would always accept being second. I made understanding my job. You learned a pattern. She corrected, and now you're unlearning it. That's the work. The work continued. I went to the office. I nailed the green pure pitch, winning the account for Sterling Low. I had drinks with Sarah and didn't mention Michael once. I started running along the harbor, the rhythmic slap of my sneakers on the pavement a meditation. I felt myself, the one I'd buried under plans and compromises and understanding, slowly reemerging. She was harder. She was clearer. She was a little bruised. But she was mine. One rainy Thursday evening, 6 weeks after the wedding that wasn't. I was scrolling through my contacts, deleting old numbers. When I saw it, Michael, my love red heart, my thumb hovered over it. The last of the physical remnants were gone. The gifts were returned. The wedding debt was settled. My heart, while still tender, no longer felt like an open wound. It was time. I tapped the edit button. I deleted the photo of us from Big Sur. I deleted my love red heart. I backspaced over Michael. For a moment, I just looked at the empty field. Then, slowly, deliberately, I typed 2 words. The past. I hit save. The contact disappeared into the alphabetical list. Not deleted, but redefined, acknowledged, filed away. I put down my phone, walked to the window, and looked out at the glistening city. The storm had passed. The cleanup was done. The ground was soaked, but it was fertile. And for the first time in a very long time, I was curious about what might grow. The first snow of the season dusted Baltimore like powdered sugar, a clean, silent blanket over the grime of the city. 3 months had passed since the day. The world had kept spinning, indifferent to my personal earthquake. Sterling Low had not only landed the Green Pure account, but expanded it, thanks to my Eco Warrior on a Mission campaign. As Linda called it, I'd been promoted to associate director, with a raise that meant I could finally afford the apartment on my own without flinching. The extra bedroom was now a home office, painted a defiant shade of deep emerald. There were no boxes in the corner. I was meeting Sarah for brunch at a new spot in Fells Point, a place with exposed brick and excellent Bloody Marys. I arrived first, shrugging out of my wool coat and scanning the menu. I was early, a habit I'd reclaimed. My time was my own now. I wasn't waiting on anyone. Sorry, I'm late. Sarah bustled in, her cheeks pink from the cold, shedding layers. The line at the bakery was insane, but I come bearing almond croissants as a peace offering. She plopped a paper bag on the table and peered at me. You look rested, and like you've been at the gym. Have you been at the gym? Who are you? The gym has a great podcast selection, I said, smiling. It was true. The rhythmic clank of weights was a satisfying counterpoint to the voices in my headphones discussing marketing trends or true crime. And I'm sleeping through the night. It's a miracle. We ordered. As we waited, Sarah's phone buzzed. She glanced at it, her expression shifting to a familiar grimace. What? I asked, stirring my coffee. It's just Chloe. She's in this group chat with some of the other girls from the wedding party. She says Michael and Lily are officially a thing. Like, posting on social media, holding hands at the farmer's market a thing. I took a sip of coffee, letting the information settle. There was no stab of pain, just a distant, clinical curiosity that I'm not surprised. It was always the end game. Chloe says Lily looks radiantly healthy in all the photos. Funny how that works. Sarah rolled her eyes. And get this, they're apparently taking a healing trip to Costa Rica. Because, surviving a wedding cancellation is so traumatic. I shook my head, a small, wry smile on my lips. Good for them. They can heal each other. I'm done being their audience. Sarah looked at me, her gaze searching. You really are okay, aren't you? I'm better than okay, I said, and meant it. Therapy helps. Work helps. Not having my emotional energy siphoned off by a human black hole really helps. Our food arrived. As we ate, Sarah filled me in on her own life, a promising new guy she'd met who wasn't afraid of her sharp tongue, a promotion at her architecture firm. The conversation was easy, forward-looking. My past wasn't the third person at the table anymore. After brunch, I decided to walk home, enjoying the crisp air. My phone buzzed in my pocket. It was a work email, but below it, a notification from LinkedIn. Michael Bennett has viewed your profile. I stopped walking, right in the middle of the sidewalk. A man in a hurry had to swerve around me, muttering. I barely noticed. He was looking me up. A swarm of conflicting emotions buzzed in my chest. Anger, curiosity, a pathetic flicker of something like validation. See what you're missing, that I could almost hear him think it. I stood there, the snow beginning to fall a little harder, fat flakes catching in my hair. My first instinct was to block him. My second was to look at his profile, to see the curated version of his new life with Lily. I opened the app. My finger hovered over his name. Then I thought of Dr. Reed's voice, that your energy is a finite resource. Where do you choose to invest it? Looking at his profile was an investment. It was a withdrawal, a step backward into a haunted house I'd already cleaned out and sold. I didn't click. Instead, I went into my privacy settings and adjusted them so he couldn't see when I viewed his profile either. Then I put my phone away. I walked the rest of the way home feeling lighter, stronger. I had chosen myself. Again, the following Tuesday was my final scheduled session with Dr. Reed. We'd agreed on an initial 8 weeks, and the time was up. So, she said, smiling on my screen, our last session. How are you feeling? I'm feeling like I've graduated from crisis management to life management. I said, the grief isn't gone, but it's a quiet companion, not a screaming tyrant. The anger is useful now that IT fuels my runs, reminds me of my boundaries. Mostly, I feel clear. And what have you learned about yourself through all of this? I thought for a moment. That I learned that my understanding nature had a dark side. IT was a way to avoid conflict, to feel like the good one, even if it meant erasing my own needs. I learned that a boundary isn't a wall, it's a doorway. It defines where I end and someone else begins. And I learned that I'm a lot more resilient than I gave myself credit for. I built a career. I'm rebuilding a life. I'm not broken. That's profound self-knowledge. Emily, Dr. Reed said warmly that you've done incredible work. Remember, therapy is a tool. You can always come back for a tune-up. I will. Thank you, Evelyn, for everything. After we signed off, I sat in the quiet of my home office. The snow was falling steadily now, coating the window ledge. I opened the bottom drawer of my desk, where I kept a small, carved wooden box. Inside, it were a few things: the diamond pendant my mother had given me on the wedding day, a seashell from that trip to Big Sur with Michael, and my engagement ring. I took the ring out. It sparkled, cold and beautiful in the gray light. For months, it had felt like a shackle, then a relic of failure. Now, it just looked like a very expensive piece of jewelry that belonged to a woman I used to be. I'd thought about selling it, but the idea felt transactional, dirty. Pawn it for a fraction of its value. No, an idea had been forming for a few weeks. I picked up my phone and Googled a name I'd seen in the local news: the Diana Foundation, a local charity that helped women leaving abusive relationships get back on their feet, providing everything from apartment deposits to professional wardrobe clothing. I called the number. A warm-voiced woman answered. Hi, I said, my name is Emily Thorne. I'd like to make a donation. It's a piece of jewelry, an engagement ring. I was wondering if you accept those. And if so, what the process is. We absolutely do, the woman said, her voice softening with understanding. We partner with a reputable jeweler who appraises and resets donated stones. The proceeds go directly into our client assistance fund. It's a wonderful way to turn a painful chapter into a fresh start for someone else. A fresh start for someone else. The words resonated deep in my chest. That's perfect, I said, my voice thick with an emotion I couldn't quite name. Not sadness, maybe catharsis. I'll bring it in this week. The day I dropped off the ring was bitingly cold. But the sun was out. The Diana Foundation's office was in a bright, renovated row house. The woman I'd spoken to, Marta, met me with a kind smile and no pitying looks. She had me fill out a simple form for the tax deduction. Would you like a receipt for the appraisal value? She asked. No, I said, handing her the small velvet box. I don't need to know what it was worth. I just need to know it's going to do some good. Marta's eyes glistened. It will. I promise you. Thank you, Emily. This is a generous gift. As I walked out into the bright winter day, I felt a tangible shift. as if a physical weight I hadn't even known I was carrying had been lifted from my shoulders. It was done. The last tangible thread was cut. That night, Sarah convinced me to go to a low-key networking event for young professionals in the creative industries. My instinct was to decline, to curl up with a book. But the new Emily, the one who said yes to things that scared her, agreed. The event was at a speakeasy-style bar in Mount Vernon. It was crowded, buzzing with conversation. I got a drink and practiced the art of small talk, something I'd neglected for years. I talked to a graphic designer about typography trends, to a nonprofit director about fundraising challenges. For an hour, I was just Emily Thorne, associate director, not Emily Thorne. Left at the altar, I was heading toward the bar for a water when I literally bumped into someone, sloshing a little of my seltzer. "Oh, I'm so sorry," we said in unison, then laughed. I looked up. The man was tall, with kind, crinkly blue eyes and dark hair that was slightly mussed. He wore a well-fitting but comfortable-looking sweater under a sport coat. He looked solid, grounded, no harm done. He said, smiling, "These things are always a mosh pit. David Miller." He offered his hand. "Emily Thorne." I shook it. His grip was firm, warm. "Thorne." "Wait. Emily Thorne." Sterling Low. The Green Pure campaign. I blinked, surprised. "Yes. How did you?" "I'm with Chesapeake Brand Partners. We pitched against you for that account. Your presentation was stunning. My team spent a week trying to figure out how we lost so decisively." He said it with good humor. No bitterness. "Oh, well, thank you. It's a great product. Made it easy." I felt a flush of professional pride. It's more than that. The "Every Drop Counts" tagline. The influencer strategy, targeting zero-waste moms. Genius. Brutal, but genius. He grinned. "Can I buy you a drink to make up for almost wearing your seltzer?" "Water." "I promise." "I'm driving." I hesitated for a second. This was a date-like interaction. My heart gave a small, panicked flutter, but David's demeanor was open, easy. There was no pressure, just a colleague giving a compliment. "Sure," I said. "That a water would be great." We found a slightly quieter corner. The conversation flowed effortlessly. We talked shop, but also about Baltimore, about his love of kayaking on the Patapsco, about my recent discovery of trail running. He was witty, self-deprecating, and listened more than he talked. He didn't ask invasive questions. He didn't look at me with that subtle, pitying curiosity I'd grown to dread. After about 20 minutes, he glanced at his watch. I should probably head out. Early morning meeting with a notoriously grumpy client. He pulled out his phone. "Would it be wildly unprofessional to ask for your number? Not to steal your clients. I swear. Just. It's rare to meet someone who can talk about integrated marketing strategies and the best hiking trails in Patapsco Valley with equal passion." I laughed. The sound felt good, genuine, that it's a fine line. I said, "But sure." I gave him my number. He saved it, then looked at me, his expression turning softer, more sincere. "For what it's worth, Emily Thorne, I'm really glad I almost spilled your drink." "Me too." David Miller. He left with a wave. I stayed a little while longer, talking to a few more people, but my mind kept drifting back to the easy conversation. The lack of drama, the feeling of being seen for my mind first. When I got home, there was a single text waiting. "David, grumpy client survived. Hope you got home okay." That was the highlight of my week. Mine too. "Good luck with the rest of your grumpy clients." I put my phone down, a slow, real smile spreading across my face. It wasn't a grand romance. It was a spark, a possibility, and for the first time in a very long time, the possibility of something new didn't feel terrifying. It felt interesting. I walked to the window. The snow had stopped. The city below was quiet, blanketed in white, holding its breath. But underneath, I knew life was stirring, pipes thawing, plans being made, seeds waiting in the frozen ground for their turn in the sun. I wasn't waiting anymore. I was stirring. Too. The past was archived. The present was a clean slate, a snowy field of untouched potential. And the future, I looked out at the glimmering, silent city, and for the first time, I was genuinely excited to find out. The following week passed in a pleasant, low-key blur. Work was demanding but fulfilling. Sarah and I started a Thursday night tradition of trying a new takeout spot and dissecting our weeks. And there were texts from David, not a deluge, but a steady, thoughtful trickle. A funny article about marketing fails he thought I'd appreciate. A photo of a surprisingly beautiful frost pattern on his car windshield with the caption, "Dat Nature's graphic design." A simple, "Hope your Thursday meetings aren't draining the life out of you." It was normal, delightfully, wonderfully normal. There were no dramatic declarations, no overwhelming intensity, no crises that required his immediate attention, just the slow, steady build of a potential connection, brick by respectful brick. On Friday afternoon, as I was wrapping up a report, my office phone rang. The receptionist's voice was oddly hesitant. "Emily, there's a delivery for you at the front desk. It's large." I frowned that I didn't order anything. "Who's it from?" "It doesn't say. It's just a lot of flowers." A cold knot tightened in my stomach. Flowers, the classic apology, the grand, empty gesture. I knew, with a certainty that stole my breath, who they were from. "I'll be right down," I said, my voice flat. The lobby of Sterling Low was modern and minimalist. The absurdly large bouquet of 24 red roses sitting on the reception desk looked like a gash of blood against the clean white marble. They were garish, overwhelming, the kind of arrangement that screams guilt. Megan, the receptionist, gave me a wide-eyed look. "That there's a card." I plucked the small envelope from its plastic fork. My name was written on the front in a familiar, slashing script. "Michael." I didn't open it. I didn't need to. I could imagine the platitudes. "I'm so sorry. I was a fool. I miss you. Please forgive me. Can you please dispose of these?" "Megan," I said, handing the card back to her. "Unopened. Dispose of. They're beautiful," she said, then caught my expression. "Oh, right, of course. Should I send them back?" "No," I said, a plan forming. Cold and clear. Hold on to them for a moment. I walked back to my office, my heels clicking a sharp, angry rhythm on the polished floor. I picked up my cell phone. I hadn't dialed this number in over 3 months. I'd deleted it, but my fingers remembered the pattern. He picked up on the first ring, his voice a mix of hope and apprehension. "Emily, the flowers are a cliché. Michael, even for you." A beat of silence. "You got them." I didn't know what else to do. "I needed you to know I'm thinking of you. That I'm in hell. Eminesia. A living hell." I leaned against my desk, looking out at the city skyline. "What do you want?" "Michael, I want to talk. Please, just hear me out. I've had a lot of time to think. I've been seeing a therapist. I'm starting to see things. About Lily. About myself. About us. More clearly. There is no us." I said, my voice like steel. "There hasn't been for a long time. You just didn't notice until you were standing alone at the altar." "Don't say that," he pleaded, and I could hear the genuine pain in his voice. It was no longer a weapon that worked on me. What I did was unforgivable. I know that, but it was a mistake, a moment of catastrophic, panicked judgment. It wasn't about choosing her over you. It was about being afraid to let someone down who was dependent on me. Semantics. I cut in. The result was the same. You left. You humiliated me. You broke a promise that can't be unmade. Your therapist can help you parse the why. Michael, but it doesn't change the what. I've ended it. He blurted out. With Lily. It's over. I told her she needs to move out. I finally saw it. Emily, I saw what you saw. What everyone saw. The manipulation. The dependence. It's toxic. I'm done. The confession hung in the air. I felt nothing. No surge of victory. No vindication. Just a profound, weary sadness. I'm glad you're getting help. I said, and I meant it. But you ending things with Lily has nothing to do with me. That's your journey. My journey was learning to live without you. And I have. Quite well. Actually, Emily, please. His voice cracked. I love you. I've always loved you. I was just blind, stupid. Give me one chance to prove I can be the man you deserved. One dinner. That's all I'm asking. I closed my eyes. I thought of the journal entry, of me telling myself to try harder. I thought of the hospital room, his back turned to me. I thought of the 12 unanswered calls. No, I said, the word final and clean, that I don't love you anymore. Michael, I don't even think I like you very much. The man I loved was a figment of my imagination, a version of you I built up because I wanted so badly for you to be my person. The real, you showed me exactly who he was on our wedding day. And I believe him. The line was so quiet, I thought he'd hung up. Then I heard a choked sob. So that's it. After everything. You're just moving on. Yes. I said simply. I am. And you should, too. Truly. Get healthy. Build a life that doesn't revolve around being someone's savior or martyr. But don't do it for me. Do it for yourself. I didn't wait for a response. I hung up. I sat at my desk for a long moment, letting the calm settle over me. Then I picked up the office phone and dialed reception. Megan, those flowers. I've changed my mind. Don't throw them out. Can you have them delivered? Anonymously. To the nurses' station on the 4th floor at Mercy General, room 412's Old Wing. Tell them it's a thank you for their hard work. A small, symbolic purge, sending his guilt-ridden roses back to the scene of the crime, to be enjoyed by people who actually deserve them. I finished my workday with a strange sense of lightness. The final ghost had been addressed, and it had no power left. That evening, I was meeting David for our first official non-networking event date. Drinks at a cozy, book-lined bar in Hampton. As I was getting ready, my phone buzzed with a text. It was from Jessica. Jess, you'll never guess who Mom ran into at the grocery store. I sighed, bracing myself. Me, the Pope. Jess, Barbara Bennett. And it was awkward. Mom said Barbara looked tired. Said she asked about you. Said Michael and Lily are no longer together. And that Michael is a shell of himself. Mom just said, well, Emily is thriving, and walked away. Go MOM. I smiled. Me. Tell Mom she's my hero. And yes, I already know about the breakup. He called. Jess, you what? Are you okay? What did you say? Me, I said no. And I meant it. I'm fine. Better than fine. And I was. The call had been a test. And I'd passed. The idea of Michael, sad and alone in the house he'd shared with Lily, sparked no desire to rescue him. My savior complex, it seemed, had been successfully treated. I met David at the Bookworm's Nook. He was already there, saving a corner table, 2 glasses of red wine waiting. He stood up as I approached, a warm, genuine smile on his face. You found it, he said. I did. I like this place, I said, shrugging off my coat. Good. It's one of my favorites. Quiet enough to hear yourself think. He waited until I sat before sitting himself. No overwhelming bouquet. No grand declarations. Just a glass of wine and his full attention. We talked for hours. Not just about work or hobbies, but about real things. He told me about his sister's struggle with lupus and how it had reshaped his family's dynamic. I found myself telling him about my parents, about Sarah, even in vague terms, about broken engagement. That had taught me a lot about boundaries. He listened, his eyes never leaving my face. Sounds like you've done some hard work on yourself. He said when I finished, not everyone has the courage for that. It was that or stay stuck. I said with a shrug that I got tired of being stuck. To not being stuck. He said, raising his glass. We clinked. To not being stuck. Later, as we stood outside the bar in the crisp night air, he walked me to my car. That I had a really great time. Emily, he said, his breath making small clouds in the air. Me too. He nodded, his hands in his pockets. That I'd like to do it again. Maybe dinner next time. I hear there's a new Italian place in Little Italy that's supposed to be incredible. I'd like that, I said, and I realized, with a jolt of surprise, that I wasn't just being polite. I genuinely would. He leaned in and kissed my cheek, a soft, warm press against my cold skin. It was sweet, respectful, a promise of something potential, not a claim of something owed. Good night, Emily, he said, stepping back with a smile. Good night, David. I drove home through the quiet streets, a quiet hum of contentment in my veins. My phone buzzed in the cup holder. It was a notification from my banking app. A large deposit had cleared. The Diana Foundation donation acknowledged. I smiled. The ring was gone, transformed. Its weight, both physical and symbolic, was finally, completely, lifted. When I got home, I poured myself a glass of water and stood at my living room window, looking at the city lights. My apartment no longer felt like a place where something had ended. It felt like a place where things were beginning. My phone buzzed one last time. It was Sarah. Sarah, so, how was the date with Mr. Chesapeake Brand Partners? Do I need to run a background check? I typed back, my fingers flying. Me, no background check required. It was lovely, normal, easy. We're getting dinner next week. Sarah, normal and easy. That's the sexiest thing you've ever said to me. I'm so proud of you. I put the phone down. I looked at my reflection in the dark window, a woman in a comfortable sweater, holding a glass of water, standing in an apartment that was wholly, peacefully her own. The future stretched out before me, unwritten, uncharted, and for the first time in as long as I could remember, it looked not like a threat, but like an adventure. I was no longer a woman who had been left. I was simply Emily, and that, I knew with a deep, unshakable certainty, was more than enough.